is Stefan. I'm with a company called Simfony Mobile, and I'm here to talk about IoT, which I know it's a bit outside of what was presented today. I think there's a session tomorrow quite interesting, but this is how we use programmable telecoms to deliver IoT services. So first of all, why are we doing this? So what's the benefit of thinking about IoT or integrating IoT services into one's enterprise or a process? So thinking about how consumer technology evolved, in the past couple of, let's say the last decade, we try and look at the same type of path for technology evolving for more background processes which are not necessarily so public or don't help the consumer. So there's this idea that the backend will become so efficient that it will allow to develop and find much newer and more better economies and things to produce. So first of all, I'd like to apologize. I'm a bit nervous, and because the last presentation was about fear of public speaking, it's not necessarily helped me, so bear with me for a bit. I'm sorry, it's just the context. Right. So the way we think about IoT is in two ways. We can think of vertical solutions. So for example, you can look at fleet management or industrial IoT or other applications. But there really isn't an incentive to do that, because you will have to put a large bet on one industry, and you don't know if that industry will be successful or not. So I think a better approach to IoT is to look horizontally and just focus on developing the best capabilities and the most appropriate capabilities for other companies which are experts in the field to deliver services. So we have a set of design principles I like to think about when we talk about IoT services, and that is always designed for the cloud. So everything needs to be as scalable as possible. We do trust, and I encourage you to do the same in openness and also in open source to deliver innovation, one that might not necessarily come from some guys sitting at the desk and thinking about it. You have to be able and willing to change, let's say in contrast with what traditional telcos are doing. And of course, you have to continuously integrate and incorporate customer feedback into your products. So if you look at an IoT landscape 2 years ago and 1 year from now, we'll see that there's huge revenue possibilities. But the industry that tend to spend most are the industries which already were implementing either automation or monitoring solutions in the past. So let's call them traditional industries and the traditional M2M customers. But I'm not sure if you can see there, there's a large sum of money into the others pile. So while these traditional industries continue growing, the others pile continues to grow as well. So coming back to my point, whether we should build verticals, again, this is another reason not to do so, because you don't know exactly where to place your bet. So a quick look at the IoT landscape right now. So we have various percentages on how the income from IoT projects get distributed. So we see that there are quite a lot of percentages into the hardware manufacturers, which should be so because we talk about connected devices. But there are also quite a lot, and there's a lot of value in software applications, and the same in platforms. So that's my quick definition of how things could be. So we have connectivity as the base layer. Traditional telcos do something about that. Simfony does something about that. There are other technologies emerging now which further lower cost and simplify getting connected. Platforms which can draw from both connectivity and software, and this is something that Simfony is doing. And of course, specific software which comes from companies expert in some industry or another. So this is us. We started as an MVNO with the idea to offer cross-border connectivity services for M2M devices. That means that our network, our SIM cards are always roaming on some network or another. And that gives us some advantages. The main one, we can switch from carrier to carrier in each country around the world. And what we decided next to do is actually develop the platform and the capabilities for customers to manage their connected assets themselves. The next step being creating IoT enablers like data capture, data storage, and so on. So we try to distinguish ourselves from a traditional M2M managed services player by helping customers and being part of each process, each step of the process in creating an IoT project. So this is what basically we do. We offer managed internet connectivity, but also others do that as well. We offer self-managed mobile VPNs, so you skip the internet altogether and then just connect to a private VPN where you can connect your connected devices. This is especially useful for high sensibility devices such as banking transactions, POS, and so on. We're also now developing something which is a bit outside of our area expertise, which is the LoRaWAN network to connect low-power devices to a wide area network, especially because of the power consumption advantages that this type of network has. And we're also looking into NB-IoT and the other standards that GSMA is looking on. We also run apps on the cloud and allow our customers complete control through the portal and, of course, through the APIs. So we look at 3 sets of APIs. The first of them allows you to manage your connected assets in terms of configuration, such as VPN routing, IP management, roaming routing, and so on. We have data APIs, which actually allow you to send and fetch data from expert devices, which measure stuff, let's say sensors. And we also, by integrating service creation environment, which is an open source product called Node-RED, allow you to design and develop your own APIs. Right. Quickly through just the examples. This is supposed to be a joke. The most important API is the invoice for Simfony at least. But being serious, you're able to use telco APIs like SMS messaging. Some M2M services still rely on SMS messaging to get and send data from devices. You also be able to set data cap limits in order to better control your usage. And also, what I think it's important, especially in managed M2M, is the ability for the network to inform the customer's systems about events which happened on the network, which might traditionally be transparent to a customer's backend. So for that purpose, we implement webhooks, and you can configure and filter which events go to one's backend, and then we just post those events there, like receiving an SMS message or something being done to the SIM card. Also, they're available in the web UI. The data APIs, so because we decided to also do data storage and capture in the platform, we decided to use unstructured data, and for this purpose, we implemented quite a few clusters of MongoDB. And of course, they can be used like any other hosted MongoDB instance, which other providers do, by the customer. So they can really use this as a database, but the purpose is for them to fetch data from databases which is being sent by sensor or M2M devices. And of course, this is the Node-RED UI, where you have a bunch of protocols for data coming in, then a bunch of protocols for data coming out, so you can actually design the process yourself and build a proper application for your needs. And we also do that for some of our customers. Now, because I talked about non-traditional M2M applications, I'm going to go through 3 use cases. Also wanted to do a demo, but I don't think that's a good idea, which are inherently non-traditional. So the first one, it's an IoT application for beekeepers to monitor and manage their beehives. Just going quickly through the slide, what I said in the beginning is that in order to develop vertical solutions, you really need to be in touch with industry experts. So we did just that, and we worked with people actually doing science for beekeeping. We gathered the requirements, we sat together and developed custom hardware with a partner, integrated device connectivity through a SIM card, and then used the platform to capture data, store it. And then we decided to have a separate UI for the beekeepers to use, because not being necessarily technical people, they won't log into the platform and create a report on the data. So they have a mobile app and also push SMS notification. The second one, it's more traditional, but not necessarily the industry standard. So it's a parking management solution for quite a large city in Europe, and not necessarily, so it's Istanbul, where we use the Simfony mobile data capabilities as a backhaul enabler for a LoRa wide area network. So we use both enablers to do that. And again, the data gets stored into the platform, and then you can use it and report it in various ways. And the second one is actually a pretty cool project. A company came to us and said, look, we have this EV charging stations, and the thing we don't have in order to promote them to enterprise customers is a way for them to monetize charging. So right now, because the EV market is quite small, that's not that important, but they were thinking, for example, for hotels or mom and pop type of motels to monetize EV charging as well. So they came to us initially for a payment solution, and we integrated an industry standard API through Node-RED and into our services. And on top of that, because we already hooked into the EV charging stations, we developed the dashboards for them to monitor power consumption, usage per day, number of cars, and so on. So all of these projects were quickly prototyped and then deployed to production using the enablers on the platform. Now it was time for a demo of the platform. I'm not sure exactly how much time I have. Good. All right, okay. Can I use your Chrome browser? Yeah, sure. All right. All right, so this is... Thank you. All right, so this is actually another quick two-day hack. Andrea, our colleague from marketing, is actually involved in a nonprofit which collects toys for children and then donates them during the holidays. So we said we can do something interesting with IoT, in the sense that we want to count how many toys are being collected in real time. And the idea was that seeing the number grow, or actually seeing that there's a small number, will encourage people to donate more toys. And then on top of that, we actually did some social media stuff. But just going through that application. Sorry, not me. Right, so this is one of my colleagues' account. So if it's really messy, because he's playing all the time with all sorts of projects. But just to get started, we have some sensors which count each time something moves in a certain path. They are connected to a gateway through Zigbee, I believe. The gateway is mobile enabled and uses a Simfony SIM card, and then connects to the platform. So the sensors send data to the gateway pushes it through MQTT to our service execution environment. So just quickly look through device properties. That's about it. It uses Orange. As I said, we can use any operator, or most operators, let's say. Various mobility services relevant for MTM, like location information and so on. But this is not exactly the point. The data gets pushed through this node distance, so it's a bit messy, but the thing is that we also use third-party APIs like Google image recognition in order to filter out pictures which might be potentially unsafe to publish directly on social media. So sensors send data actually into another app, if I'm being honest. Is this one. Okay, so this is even messier. But the thing is that they use MQTT to send sensors. They get published to a queue. Then the app gets it, and the final place is to get stored into a MongoDB instance, which is what this node does. Then from there, you can look at the data. As I said, it's unstructured. And what we decided to do is create a web page to show the data, like the count of toys being donated, and also have the ability to take a picture via WebRTC and then post it to Facebook. So the picture is transformed into a binary payload, then sent to the flows. It gets analyzed through Google image recognition, and if it's safe, then it goes to Facebook. So this is just a quick example to show you what we were able to do in less than 2 days, because there were other things going on. But yeah, to quickly prototype something that's, we think, useful, but a fun project in this case, but in the same way to tackle industries which are not the obvious ones and which could benefit from innovation brought by connecting things together. Let me just go back to this one. Is it this one? Yeah, let's just do this. All right. Thinking about the future of IoT service providers, I'm not exactly sure. But I do know for a fact that the traditional way of doing things will not help that $1.8 trillion industry, which is missing now vertical solutions. So the only advice I might have, or the only plan we have at Simfony, is to try to open and allow as many software engineers or companies to use IoT with their own specific set of requirements and without going through the whole development process, so they can quickly prototype and get something to the market. So I do think that that's the only way for service providers to move on, and that goes from devices, which tend to become open source designs, to connectivity, which is more and more accessible. On the other hand, if you look at the IoT, we need to look at lower costs because we have higher volumes and many more devices. So just as an analogy, we're looking at moving from a computer network, which we had 30 years ago, to the internet, which was only possible through the advent of high-level protocols and ease of use and in-page UI editing and so on. So that's what we think of the future of IoT. Thank you. And if you have any questions.
That was an excellent presentation. Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. And the closing point in terms of really saying there is no killer app, you just need to empower people to play with the tools.
That's what
I think that is so critical. A lot of my projects I keep telling people there's no such thing as the killer app anymore.
There isn't.
You know, and that's part of what TED Hack's all about, is just getting the tools in as many people's hands as possible. As you saw, a charity. And you can solve so many community and humanitarian issues just by empowering people to have a play. But do we have any questions? Okay, we'll go here and then to you, Mark, okay?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Totally agree. about the killer app, plurality of apps. Do you provide the SIM cards as well? And do you provide them in the US?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. All right.
So we started as a mobile operator without a radio network, so we're what you would call a full MVNO. So we have our own core network, but we just hop from radio network to radio network based on roaming agreements.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Just going to do Mark then. No, it's okay. I'll take it round. So potentially something for your showroom. Okay. You're number 4. I've got 2 more behind. You have to wait. Yeah. Also, a good presentation. I wonder if you could go back to a slide that was about the 2nd or 3rd in, where you listed the different components of the IoT ecosystem.
Right.
And one of the things that I was kind of curious, if I understood correctly, you're actually playing really at that sort of platform or that enabler level as well as the connectivity level. Is that correct?
That is correct. So our platform, so I'm not saying that this is a universal thing, but our platform consists of connectivity and the connectivity management layer, that being the start, so your M2M network operator, and then on top of that, building tools to utilize the connectivity and devices and the data itself. So it's somewhere in the middle, because to be honest, we can't do, for example, the best data analysis, so we don't do predictive algorithms and things like that. They are on the roadmap somewhere in the future, and we don't, for example, say have the best connectivity. And there are reasons for that, because we're always roaming, we cannot enforce quality of service, for example. But as a compromise and as a way for projects going forward, I think this is the best approach.
So I guess my question was, within the broader sense of the, I mean, for example, there's a ton of sort of both mature and emerging platforms for IoT connectivity. Are you able to work with those as well? Are you able to work with sort of third-party enablers? Or are you trying to build as much as you can into your own implementation of the ecosystem?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I wish I would have thought of that. So we're completely open in all areas. So for example, data can be sent through the platform to other platforms and from other platforms to Simfony's platform, and also in terms of connectivity management, because we offer everything through an API, everyone can integrate them in their own backend systems. And also at Simfony, we have a white labeling program. So we offer the platform and the core network as a service to others which want to, let's say, enable their own industry. So you might be a fleet management company and then just decide to go into a higher value proposition with your own connectivity services, which then you can add on top of margins and so on. So yes for data and yes for connectivity management as well.
Open is good, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. A quick question. Thank you for the presentation. How do you solve permanent roaming?
That's a great question. So in Europe, it's not that big of a problem. The problem we see is with the US and Canada. So the only way you can do that is actually engage with the MNO there, and then you come to some sort of an agreement. So for example, I can tell you about Canada. We solve permanent roaming, but with a certain data cap. So we, for specific Canadian MNO, we cannot go above this many megs per month, because on top of that, they don't consider it M2M anymore, which is fine by us. So it's enough in 99% of the cases, the agreement we reach with them. So there's no solution for every operator, but we try to engage with them and tell them about the model, tell them that roaming services actually bring in value to them. It's more difficult when the operator already has a very large M2M program, so then it's not that easy.
And we'll just take a final question from Dean.
Thanks. Are you thinking about, for certain clients, building out physical infrastructure, maybe using CBRS or multifier to actually become a hybrid MNO, MVNO?
So It's a really interesting question. We do that with LoRa, which uses an unlicensed spectrum. So I didn't tell you about this, but we also have a cloud network server which works with the LoRa network. And what our offering is, the devices, the customers can get their own devices. They just configure Simfony's network server, and then you can manage LoRa devices in the same way you manage GSM. So we do that. It really depends on the type of technology from a spectrum perspective and also from a protocol perspective. So for example, we are not able to do that with Sigfox, which is in the proper spectrum, but with different technology.
Yeah. I was thinking sort of unlicensed LTE
Yeah.
or shared spectrum LTE.
Yeah.
So I know in Netherlands you can get, industrial companies can get slices of 3.4 gigahertz or something like that running LTE.
Right. So the core network is completely open. It's fully 3GPP compliant. So if the use case is there, the protocols are there to support authentication, authorization, data handling, and so on. So yeah, that's an option.
Excellent. Again, a round of applause for a great Q&A session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.